When Larima larrikin Paddy Moriarty and his dog went missing 4 years ago, there was no shortage of theories about what happened. The 70-year-old had either been swallowed up by a sinkhole, suffered a medical episode on his morning walk, or, as police would quickly fear, met with foul play in a tiny town of just 13 people. Several new theories, some more far-fetched than others, emerged earlier this week when the Northern Territory coroner resumed his inquest into the former ringer's mysterious disappearance 500 kilometers south of Darwin. One witness told the court he overheard Larima tea shop owner Fran Hodgetts offer his mate up to $10,000 to get rid of the old man, who was still giving her a hard time. "I can tell you now, I never ever paid anybody to bump Paddy off," she said. A missing persons sign at the front of Paddy Moriarty's empty and overgrown house in Larima. The same witness told the inquest he suspected his mate, also British backpacker Peter Falconio, 2 decades ago, despite the conviction of Bradley John Murdoch. Another witness, who described himself as a psychic, said 2 men by the names of Richard and Rudog told him they had shot and buried Mr Moriarty near the town of Mataranka. Detectives investigated the claim, but confirmed both men were working in Western Australia when Mr Moriarty vanished from Larima. Larima, where Paddy lived, is about 500 kilometers south of Darwin. This week's inquest also revealed police had secretly installed a listening device inside the bungalow of Ms Hodgetts' live-in gardener, Owen Laurie. The scratchy audio, played in the courtroom, features a man talking and singing to himself in the months after Mr Moriarty's. "I ated old Paddy," the male voice says, according to detectives. "Struck him on the head and ated him, basherated him." In another recording, police claim the male voice says, "Smacked him on the ******ing nostrils with a claw hammer." Mr Laurie has denied any wrongdoing. Mr Laurie, who maintains he was not involved in Mr Moriarty's disappearance, told the inquest the recordings were not of him. He then chose to exercise his right to remain silent. Neighbourly dispute turned lie, coroner says. Mr Moriarty was last seen leaving Larimer's iconic Pink Panther-themed hotel with his red Kelpie Kelly on the evening of December 16, 2017. Despite extensive land and air searches, no trace of the man or his dog has ever been found. Larima had a population of 13 when Mr Moriarty went missing. But even without a body, coroner Greg Kavanagh believes Mr Moriarty's colourful life came to an end in suspicious circumstances later that night. Paddy was in the context of unlikely due to the ongoing feud he had with his nearest neighbours, Mr Kavanagh stated in his official findings, released this week. Mr Moriarty lived in a disused service station directly across the road from Fran's tea house, where Ms Hodgetts also sold pies. The neighbours were initially on good terms when Mr Moriarty first purchased the top of the town servo in 2010. Mr Moriarty lived across the road from Fran's tea house in Larima. However, things deteriorated, the coroner said, in somewhat of an understatement. Over the following years, their feud escalated, with Ms Hodgetts filing 9 separate complaints with police. Among the many accusations, she claimed he stole her $200 red umbrella, deliberately scared away her customers, and dragged the stinking carcasses of kangaroos onto her property. A little over a year before he went missing, the warring neighbours entered a truce of sorts. In their signed mediation contract, they agreed to leave past matters in the past, limit interactions to necessity, and if one person waves, the other will wave back. But a year later, the civilities ended amid claims Mr Moriarty had poisoned her plants. Fran Hodgetts believed Mr Moriarty poisoned her plants. Her newly appointed live-in gardener, Mr Laurie, told the inquest he was joking when he told Ms Hodgetts, "Any ******ing bastard comes in here and poisons my in garden, it'll be the first in Larima." "Don't do anything stupid," Ms Hodgetts allegedly told Gardner. Opinions of Irish-born Mr Moriarty vary. Publican Barry Sharp, whose outback bar included a zoo with 700 birds and a 3.5-metre crocodile, told the inquest Mr Moriarty was a good-natured, happy-go-lucky man. His friend Karen Rayner said he would spin yarns for the tourists who dropped in for a cold drink. He was like our concierge, he was very popular, she said. Ms. Rayner described the inquest's findings as a little upsetting. But other residents suggested he had a bit of a temper and could be very rude and obnoxious when he was drunk. Several days before he went missing, the inquest heard he and Mr. Lorry had a verbal altercation after Mr. Moriarty's dog ventured across the highway towards the gardener's residence. Mr. Lorry told the inquest their voices were neither raised nor aggressive. But according to the barman at the hotel, Mr. Moriarty told him it was a heated exchange. "You need to shut that *******ing dog up, or I'll shut it for you," Mr. Moriarty claimed his neighbor had said. Mr. Moriarty and his dog Kelly were last seen more than 4 years ago. Mr. Moriarty is said to have fired back, "Shut your mouth, or I'll take your knees out from under you." The bartender told the 70-year-old, "Be careful, mate." The inquest heard Mr. Moriarty replied, "It's all good, I've got a baseball bat." When Ms. Hodgetts found out the pair had had words with each other, she said she told her gardener, "Don't do anything stupid. I'm going to Darwin, I don't want to have to come back and bail you out of jail." Mr. Lorry disputed that she had given him such a warning at that time, and told the inquest Ms. Hodgetts tended to embellish things. Fran Hodgetts denies any knowledge of what happened to her neighbor. Paddy Moriarty's final drinks. After returning from Darwin, Ms. Hodgetts and her gardener set up a new water feature on her property and put new plants in the ground. Later that evening, on December 16th, Mr. Moriarty left the pub on his quad bike and headed home for dinner. It appeared that in the midst of meal preparation something unexpected happened, the coroner said. There is no evidence as to where he went, however. It is likely that the new plants at Fran's place were of some attraction. In his findings, the coroner said he could not determine the cause of Mr. Moriarty's. But he noted that NT legislation does not permit him to include a finding or comment that a person may be guilty of an offence. However, I will refer this investigation to the Commissioner of Police and the DPP, Mr. Kavanagh said. As the investigations into Mr. Moriarty's continue, police hope the offer of a $250,000 reward for information will help solve the once-in-a-generation case.